Welcome to another episode of AI After Hours. Each month, we cut through the AI hype by answering your top questions and calling bullshit on the headlines we don't think make any sense. For a monthly roundup of AI news and real insights into what's true and what's not in the world of artificial intelligence, you're here at the right place. Have you got a question or a topic? Email us at support@AI Career Boost to join the conversation. Let's dive into this world of AI together.
I'm your co-host, Yuying Chen-Wynn, a technology and product executive with extensive experience in AI, fintech, edtech. I'm ex-chief product officer turned AI executive, currently leading everything generative AI at the financial company Peak6 and its family of companies. I specialize in building high-performing teams and actually understand what it means to leverage AI into your business. I really love talking about AI, especially with my co-host.
I'm that co-host. I'm Polly Allen. I'm the founder of AI Career Boost, where I spend my time helping product leaders navigate the world of AI and transition into AI leadership roles where they can thrive. I've spent my career in both the product and software development sides of the fence in the software development world, and I'm an ex-Alexa AI principal product manager, where I successfully launched the very first generative AI answers on Alexa back in 2020. I'm fortunate enough to be recognized as a top 100 Women of the Future winner, and I'm in 2024's Marquis Who's Who for my contributions in AI. I love talking about AI with Yuying, especially in this more casual environment where we get to have a few bevies for after hours. Do you have a drink on in your hand there, Yuying? What do you got?
I do. I got my cute little sake set up in here, but makes me feel fancy. Very small, tiny cups. Yes. It's you guys have heard this before. It's my plum infused spicy sake.
I've got to try this sometime. It sounds amazing. It looks adorable. And I'm just always over here being a big wino, but I own it.
Like,
So
I mean, you're in Washington. This is a wine state. Although, to be fair,
it's true.
California
Yeah,
is a wine state as well.
Yeah.
So
I do think this one is from
little
Napa.
bit.
I have a Sauvignon Blanc from Napa right now.
Okay. Before we dive into the news, I just got to highlight that what we were talking about the other day, that you started AI Career Boost when?
Oh, okay. I got this backwards, but ChatGPT launched November 30th, 2022 or
That's
December
correct.
1st? Okay.
ChatGPT
And AI
launched
Career
November
Boost
30th.
2022. AI Career Boost was December 1st. So the very next day. That's how on top of trends I am.
I think we got to celebrate that. So you got the same anniversary almost as ChatGPT. But
It's so true. Yeah, exactly. It was totally unintentional, but it just worked out that way.
No. From this point on, that was totally intentional. You
I'm
knew.
basically a Cassandra. I can tell tech trends down to the day. That's why you should listen.
Exactly. The big one. That's why we're here for the news. And that's why I'm talking about the news and you're commenting on it, because that's how accurate you are. So we're going to start with that. Jump into the monthly roundup. Now, I'm going to extend this a little bit because December we did our wrap up. So we didn't quite cover what happened in December. It was a quiet month, luckily. But so quickly in December, there were a couple of model updates of note. One that I mentioned in the wrap up, which was the Gemini models, the Gemini 2 experiment. They're actually live the day they announced it. They had both Flash, so that's the fast one, and the experimental models. They had it in the UI and the API. And they have an advanced reasoning version to compete with O1. And the biggest one, of course, I highlighted with that API, there was a whole bunch announced, was that multimodal API, if you remember me gushing about it. But we kind of, because of like the end of the year, we kind of glazed over it, but that was a major release for Gemini out of Google. What do you think? Did you check into all of those things?
Man, yeah, after you were gushing about it, I got a chance to play around with it. It's really amazing to get your hands on it. It's funny how I was so impressed with this launch because they launched it and they made everything available. It's almost like a year ago, they caught a whole bunch of shit from people for putting out something and not making it available right away. And then people calling them out on that. You remember that? It was almost exactly a year ago that their first releases. So now it's clearly like, hey, like we are not putting out anything that is not not just demoable, but accessible immediately. People can try it. If you've
Yep.
been listening to
And
us,
developers
we've been
can
bitching
play
about this.
with it. Yeah.
Exactly. Like make it available or shut up, because otherwise you're just talking about possibilities, which is like kind of interesting, but there's too much to learn with what's actually being available. Never mind, like, stuff that's pie in the sky, right, and not available
Yeah.
yet. So
So thank goodness they did that, because this is one of those rare moments where our CEO saw some announcement about some cool thing and we actually had it in the app working because the API was up
and
and
it was
it was
cool.
all available.
It lived
Yeah,
up to the hype.
and it did, it did.
Yeah.
I did also have to block the advanced multimodal API due to risk and compliance issues, but they move fast. I move fast. Okay, so that was the biggest one, the one that's flying way under the radar because I didn't even looked at it. Did you know that Llama had an update? It was, I believe, it's either
Oh,
3.1 or 3. Yeah, I know. Like,
I've
wait,
been on
what?
vacation, man. I feel bad. I feel like a very bad product leader. I've been very like la la la.
It did not
But
make a splash, so I have no comment. But I'm like, okay, guys, you got to know, people are just making updates all over the place. Um, the new model, quote unquote, update is not an update; it's an announcement. So we're back to those, and I'll bet you find this one interesting. So, OpenAI announced O3. They just announced it. Like I was like, wait, it's live? Where is it? Why is it O3? What happened to O2?
oh, too. They're so
Anyway,
bad at naming these things. They're so bad.
okay, O3 is the next version of the advanced reasoning model from OpenAI. It's announced, as far as I can tell, it's not live. It is in different bot arenas with tests and benchmark performances. It's supposed to be much, much better than O1. Remember, that's the one behind the $200 a month subscription from ChatGPT now. But I think for me, and probably for you, the most interesting is what Sam Altman said as part of this announcement, which is pretty much like, look, the advanced reasoning AGI, we got it solved. It's good. You'll see it.
Yeah,
It's awesome. We're
totally.
moving on to
APA's
super
solved.
intelligence. Kind of just
Go
overshadowing the fact
take
that
away
number one,
everyone's jobs with what we built, and but we're busy doing the next thing. Crazy. Yeah.
what do you think about both O3 and what they got AGI solved? We're just moving on to super intelligence.
I
And the
mean, it
fact that
hasn't
they're
been
going
long
to
enough
work in
to.
the defense just
I, I get why everyone uses benchmarks to, say, oh, it does better, right? You need a set of like, here's the standard questions we use, and it answers them well or poorly to compare apples to apples, right? Does that mean it works better on your use case? No, it does not. Does it mean it works better on your use case with your data? No, it does not. Does this generally solve all reasoning problems? Like, I'm very skeptical, so maybe I'll be wrong. Just remember, I'm the one who started a company the day after ChatGPT launched, so maybe I'm not. No, I think it's marketing. Of course, he wants to kick off the AGI discussion again, because who doesn't, who in that space doesn't right now? Because, especially with all the bluster with the incoming administration and Elon Musk being there, like, I don't know. I think they just want to distract from any ethical issues, any like legal stuff coming down that really prohibits them from gaining an advantage. So, I mean, I think they're interested in legal things that help them, provide them a moat against smaller other incumbents. So I haven't had a chance personally to play around with O3 yet. I think it's going to be interesting to see. It's funny, I don't have the $200 a month subscription, so I'm limited in what I can do with movie generation. Of course, Sora is pretty fun with that, and that's a big part of that $200 a month subscription too. It will be interesting to see like what they're calling out as the things that you could not solve with O1 that you can with O3. Clearly, this is all moving towards agentic AI, right? And the decision making, handing over to more and more agency and decision making from people who have oversight to the systems, and that's where they see this going. So it's clearly going in that direction, and that push is going to continue. But so far, agentic AI has been elusive on real use cases because it hasn't been ready yet. It doesn't have the logic functionality. Is O3 the thing that's going to change that? have to wait and see.
The thing is, I think with the advanced reasoning models, I'm sure they're powerful, but as I'm testing it, I struggle to come up with a use case that 4.0 doesn't already do pretty well. I'm like, what advanced reasoning do I really need? What I really need you to do is figure out what constraints my IT have put on me. So we can run so I feel like the advanced reasoning capabilities is a far cry from us actually being able to put enough context in there so that it has a complex problem to need that reasoning, right? Most of us are not out here doing like PhD level physics and math and trying to get some. I don't know who is and why they should be using this for the advanced reasoning, but for anything practical, which is kind of write me an app, you have to deal with infrastructure. You have to deal with the deployment. You actually have to give them access rights and controls. I'm like, before anybody builds that or being able to ingest in a terabyte of data, what are you going to put the brain behind if it's got no input? So
Right. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And there's still so many companies struggling to be AI ready for with the technology we've got. Right. So I've said it before, I've heard us say it. Like if our advances in the OpenAI's O1 model was as far as we went and stopped all our advances, we've got like 5 years of catch up to do for industry. It's just unbelievable how fast that's emerging. But don't be fooled into thinking, oh great, but these things work out of the box for me, you know, day one. We're still at that early experimental phase, right?
yeah.
Every time.
So
What do you think, people? Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna, what is it, POC? We're gonna try out this new BS or wow meter that we're gonna do.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. So
Oh, this is a hard one. Okay.
BS or wow, and what's the score?
Yeah. So for each of the news headlines, is it a bit like BS to like the real deal? Is that the wow? The wow is like, yeah.
Yeah. 2 letters and 3 letters. I keep them short. The BS or the wow? What's the 03? I think right now.
I need time to actually play with it.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay,
I don't think
that'll
it's
be your
total
challenge.
BS, but I do think they're probably overstating. Like many things, it's like it's not total BS, but they're overstating it where they're at, right? I wanted to know what you think of OpenSeek out of China. They've just come out with a model. They say rivals slash beats OpenAI O1 on benchmarks, open source.
Oh, so this is probably going to be a bad thing to say for me, but in general, any of these Chinese model benchmark results, my BS meter is very high.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I won't.
Can you say more without without getting racist?
Without getting, you know how we're really good at getting test scores. One of the hardest things to trust about a benchmark result is that you cannot guarantee that they trained with benchmark data if it's pre-trained with it, right? So whether or not it's open source or not, the one I tend to believe is when they go into the open bot arena for human preferences. Even then, you can still, recruit a bunch of people, but yeah, benchmark
But I
results
think
in general, China or not, I have
exactly.
my
Well,
BS meters high.
what's been remarkable is they didn't just open source the model and the weights, but they've actually released a paper detailing like the training methods. And so it's got more information than we ever had. So this is like very unusual to see this high level of research open sourced, right? And so there's been like new breakthroughs in the ways that they're training the models, et cetera, that they're basically like these would have been trade secrets if it happened at OpenAI. I think it's a further. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
My bet is that this is a move for talent grab.
That's a
I'm like,
really
what's the
great insight.
advantage? It's you have to get the so from a national competitiveness, it's the people that's going to make it, and there's only so many in the world. It is if this is your way, because you otherwise your models are not really exposed out there. People don't really know you. You don't have like, you know, the chutzpah of OpenAI and Sam Altman. This is the best way you can get to get people interested in your stuff and be like, wow, that's really cool. Maybe I would consider. This is my kind of bet. But
it's also a massive like undercutting of the investment in US companies, right? So the US companies have dominated the investment in this space. You've got the like OpenAI's and Anthropics. Of course, you have some out of Europe. But like China hasn't really been in the race as like the biggest, most invested in companies. And if they're like, we want to challenge the dominance of the US, one way to do that is to just basically like, let's make the thing they're making money on go to zero. You want to charge $200 a month for this? Now it's free, right? It's a really interesting play. I think we'll hear more about this and see more of this going on, and that like China has a very well funded, centrally funded by the government AI ecosystem. If they're determined to win, it'll be interesting. Like communism versus capitalism.
I mean,
Not
it's
to
going
get
to be an
political.
interesting year for so many for so many things. But let's move on to January.
Yes,
The biggest
exactly.
thing
That
in
was just
January
December.
that was December. The biggest thing in January that we're not going to talk about. I know I'm starting this trend. We are not going to talk about TikTok and what happened there, and and whether or not any AI companies were involved or not. We're just nope. I said last time we were talking about election in November. January, we're not talking about TikTok, and it's off and it's
No,
on. And
let's not do that. We can just go down so many rabbit holes in this one.
yeah,
Yeah,
the BS meter is
probably
too
dangerous.
high. It's off the charts. We're just blown it out.
Yes,
Okay, but
exactly.
the
Just
thing
let
that
know
we
the
want
BS
to
is
pay
10 out of
attention
10.
to 17 out of 4. No, we're just making numbers up. Okay. But the most interesting thing in January and every year, and I have it on my bucket list, I need to actually get there, is CES, Consumer Electronics Show out of Las Vegas, where all the cool devices, whether they are actually shipping or just a concept, or maybe in 2 years, 3 years, the moon's aligned, that's where all the cool gadgets come out. Now, as you might imagine, AI was a bit of a theme, and I have at least my pick in terms of the top. So, across the entire show, the one that's voted as the top AI related product across everything, of course, comes out of NVIDIA. It's called NVIDIA Cosmos. Now, the cool thing about NVIDIA Cosmos is I actually got to see it at the NVIDIA conference last year. Hopefully, I'll see you there this year as well. But what NVIDIA Cosmos is a platform that allows you to train robots in a simulated environment so they can iterate to learn things without having to do it in physical space. Okay, what does that mean? That means I could buy a robot that doesn't know how to make a margarita. Not at all. It's just
What?
it can move.
Why are we
Okay.
bothering with these useless robots?
Wait. Hold on. This is all going to make sense soon. Now you can create a simulated environment for that robot with a simulated robot that has all the capabilities as your actual robot, and you give it like an LLM chatbot instructions on how to make a margarita. Maybe you make it watch YouTube videos on how to make a margarita, and trial and error. It's just in the simulated environment. You know what fail is, what all goes on the ground. It didn't quite make it. So trial and error, run it 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000, a million. Doesn't matter how long it takes before the robot learned by itself from watching the video and trial and error how to make a margarita. All this in simulated space. Now you just go, okay, I'm good, and just port that program right into the bot. That's it. Now my bot can make. It's like I think of it as how in Matrix when they get that download of the skill, they're like,
Exactly. That's wild. So you stimulate the skill, you evaluate whether it's actually going to work, and then you're like, okay, bot, do it. It's totally like the Matrix. That's wild. I was
yeah.
just thinking
So
about the training
they
data
just
and
have
unintended
millions of
consequences.
robots like walking up and down stairs, falling over until eventually it can walk and up and down stairs in the simulated environment, and then they just put it in the real bot, and the bot goes doo, 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 doo.
It's like, don't let it watch the music video of like, give me one margarita. It's bad. Go south real fast. We don't want robots doing that. No, it's wild though to think about just watch by doing. and then import the skill matrix style. That is wild.
Yeah, exactly. So the physical robots really dominated the show. So if you watch videos, there's robots everywhere. There is a robotic bartender. There's robot dogs. There's robot people folding laundry. There are robots everywhere. There's of course autonomous driving cars. Um, but the next one, of course, for me is still from NVIDIA. Maybe a bias, I don't know, but everybody voted it. Um, Something called NVIDIA Digits. Hopefully, I'm not getting it. Doesn't sound like what it actually is. I think you guys have seen announcements of a tiny NVIDIA box, a physical box that can run an LLM about 200 billion parameters in the box itself, right? So it's not going onto the cloud, not going anywhere. It runs the inference on your desktop. So if you want that capability, but you don't want your data to go anywhere, buy the box, put it here. And you can also stack it. You're like, I need a bigger one. All right, put two together. Now you have the LLM self-contained in a box that you can just put on your desk. No cloud, no more cloud. So all of that stuff. So put whatever data you want on it. All my PII, everything is in the box. I can set it on fire later if I really don't want it to get out. Um, that I think is a massive, massive use case. Also, it's just a little box. It's not very cool to look at, but I think the impact is huge. And my favorite last one is, I think they call it a robotic cane for those who are vision impaired. Now I saw this little thing. It's got a little handle, so you think about the cane, and then give it a little handle, and then you put two wheels on the bottom, so it drives like a little tiny vehicle at the bottom. That's a cane. So you drive it around. Now the cool thing about this cane, they integrated number one in chatbot voice mode, so you can talk to it. Right? It can tell you like, oh, hey, there's a car coming, or it's a curb, we're going upstairs, etc. It of course has cameras and sensors, so it does know the surroundings, whether the car's coming, etc. And the little wheels will kind of guide you to the right place. Now, my favorite part of this, of course, is that they have it connected to the internet, so you can tell it where you want to go. And just like Waze, except in my little hand, it'll just guide you to the right place. Now, the usage scenario is for those who are vision impaired, but I feel like this has so much potential for the elderly, for kids. You kind of just have a little bit of intelligence and something that guides you around while you're, just walking down the street, going to the store, coming home from school. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at CES.
A brief cursory overview. But I was gonna say about that last one of my favorite nonprofits pre AI that it was such a good use case. I think it's called like Be My Eyes or something, where basically blind people could like take photos of things and crowdsource. Like, hey, I want to go down these stairs. Is it dangerous? Hey, I'm looking at the pop machine. What do I press to get a Coke? Right. And you could have this instantaneous feedback where they actually are crowdsourcing answers for people to be their eyes. And now you can replace this with these vision models who can do this for you. So it just reminds me a lot of that. You're just like, this is unlocking something life changing for a segment of the population. And it's so good to see this. Like, I worry sometimes that the AI is so full of tech bros who are just like, how do I AGI the thing, and worried about, advanced particle physics, when you're like, hey, we have enough of these like really pressing problems, particularly from minorities and people who aren't traditionally involved in tech, where this is just like so life changing to how they can live day to day. And I'm so glad to see that coming to bear, because it matters so much that we see the positives along with the scary side of AI every day.
Have you seen anything else cool from CES?
Oh, CES. I'm behind, man. I've been meaning to catch up. The
Okay, I gotta
holidays,
I
I kind
gotta
of
tell
took an
you
AI
that.
break.
Okay, there's two non AI cool things that I gotta tell you about. Okay, the first one is these pods for growing plants. Right, there's some AI in there, um, but it's a fog system, so the nutrients and water was gonna very fine mist, and the overall, I think, water use is like 40 or 50% lower than normal hyperdronics even. So it looks super cool in a little pod. But then there was another one, which of course is just an intelligent bot that controls the water. It just based on its
Oh,
sensors of the
I need
moisture.
this.
Yeah, I'm really
Exactly.
bad at. And it can keep it wet for like a couple of months, but it's just based on sensors. So it won't overwater, it
When I
won't
look over at my
underwater. We have an
NYC,
app.
I basically run like a concentration camp for plants where I'm basically just keeping them barely alive. They're all like right on the edge of the shelf of the sill, like they want to jump off. Like, is life really better if I stay here? I've again life changing AI for my plants at
Yeah,
the very least.
yeah.
It'll change their
And the
quality of life.
one completely unrelated, but it's too cool. Uh, a flexible battery made out of paper that's compostable.
Oh yes, you told me about this, but that's amazing, right? Like just the shifting of the energy factor. Yeah, that's
That
wild,
one
right?
is a such startup out of Singapore. I really want to see this thing come to market. I'm like, what? That is crazy. Anyway, yeah,
We got to go to the next one together. We should do like we'll go to Nvidia and do like a live broadcast of our takes. That would be amazing.
yeah. Live from
I don't know how drunk
CES.
we'll be.
Well, we can work on that. Okay, and with that, we finish our monthly news roundup covering December and January.
Awesome work. Thanks so much, Yuying. Well, let's move on to our next section. And before our last section, our favorite section. So, the next section, we talk about the biggest, most pressing issues, questions we're getting from across the internet. I don't talk about this a lot, but I actually talk to dozens to sometimes hundreds of product leaders each month, whether it's talking to prospects for consulting or for my courses. And one big trend has really emerged over the last little while, which was I hear a lot of product leaders in the situation where they're asking, how do I get control back over my projects? I think a lot of companies were surprised by how quickly AI came up on them, surprised by how quickly they were getting asks like, hey, your competitors are doing AI. What are you doing? Oh gosh, my competitors are doing it. I have to do it. And so a lot of them not knowing how to approach AI, haven't done it before, put together tiger teams of mostly technical people to go and explore this possibility. And now those tiger teams are disseminating their wisdom throughout the organization. But largely that looks like, hey, I'm coming into your team and telling you, hey, you should build for these use cases and here's how. And product people are stuck going, you don't know my users, you don't know what they really need. Like you need that chance to inject your taste, the things your users need. So one of the biggest leverage points I think is underused in product management right now is evaluation, or this for short, a lot of people have been calling it evals. So what are evals? It's circulated in technical circles. The first time I heard it shortened to evals was at a Lenny's summit, the Fire Camp Summit he had last fall for Lenny's podcast for product folks, where they had the CPO of Anthropic and the CPO of OpenAI. And they were discussing openly evals is the thing. We put all our PMs through a boot camp to run evals. This is the thing, the skill. Um, so I wanted to just chat a little bit about what evals are. Have you heard of these before, Yu Ying? Do you guys think about like when you're evaluating stuff at Pete Six? How do you think about it?
We don't use the cool word eval.
Well, now
Yeah,
everyone knows.
now I know what to call it. So, um, we I mean, I am part of that tiger team, an unusual one that I'm a head of product in a tiger team, which I think you'll find that is not the case at all. The thing what we're missing from the product, and sometimes for me because I'm from product, it's like I'm trying to pull them into it. Um, is can you define how you want the bot to behave? Because people either have the reaction of "ooh, AI is magic," it's gonna just magically know the answer. And then when they have one question that's not answered correctly, they go, "Wow, this is dumb. This sucks." Right? And my question always back to the PM. I'm like, "You're the PM. You would never build a feature without actually saying how it should behave." What do you expect it to do when you click a button? What do you expect it to do when they do something wrong? Right? But we don't do that with AI. We just go, here's a whole bunch of data, put it in the bot, it'll be smart.
Yeah,
You're like,
right, exactly.
uh, what
Ahead of
exactly do
time,
you
it's
want
very
to?
hard to specify.
Yeah. So I think what we're doing is what you called evals. Now for every PM a project we head into, we go, okay, look, you got to start by defining at least a set of good questions and answers. Like, how do you want it to behave? What are the typical use cases? You usually do the journeys of the typical ones. What are the error ones? Like, I have the general like hallucinations, bad content, bad actor, all of those locked in. But right, we're in the financial services. They should never give this investment advice. So we have more specific pieces, right? Or we should never advise them to hard code their authentic auth token or whatever. These kind of things. So yeah, that I think that's where you're getting at. We of course we had to kind of built our own little framework to automate, but like this idea, it, the PMs have to own it because the Tiger team are never going to be the ones who go,
Coming up
okay,
with the
in this
examples.
particular use case. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So it's thinking in examples instead of specifying the rules it should obey. You're thinking in examples, right? And the way it looked when we were working at Amazon, when we were summarizing news, we had to look at we would get it to generate summaries and then say like which of these are acceptable or not. So looking just say at like factuality. Well, something that has like it misspelled someone's name, that's not factual technically, versus something that like announces the wrong winner of the election. Like, are those two equal? Is this a yes, no? Is this a binary decision? Right? Or, hey, one of these infactualities has a different impact. Right? So now we're getting into like the emerging kind of standard is to have five, zero, 1 through 5, level 1 through 5 of something. So it's either, binary yes, no, or hey, categorize this into it's a misspelling of someone's name, we flipped what side of the road they were on, kind of minor things that might not get reported or might not get noticed or even retracted in a newspaper, through to like this is disturbing and this can't happen, right? And that level of deciding like, hey, what are the levels? How many of each of these levels are acceptable? And what are all the examples we need to give either people or an LLM to help them put things in the right category? Product has to be heavily involved, if not leading that. And I think that's what's been happening is too many organizations are leaving that to the data science team. And then they're like, oh, how do I get involved? You're like, no, you need to be in there. They're using LLMs to do this adjudication. It's just an English prompt saying how should I measure if this is good or bad. So that evaluation step to me is the key for PMs regaining those reins.
Have you seen a good framework for this? Because we just made ours up on the fly based on, me and my brain.
Yeah, that's so. I have one that I use at Amazon that I share as part of my courses where we talk about it was more about impact, right? And I think that's the key to it is like you have to tie it to the business metrics, right? Where you're like, oh, is this like you like the degree of incorrectness? You could care about it in a lot of different ways, but the one that matters to the business is do people stop trusting your software? Do people leave? Right? And so you have like a hypothesis of like, oh, a 5 is something that'll make people like report in this is bad, and a 4 is like they're losing trust and they're losing, we're losing users, and a 2 is like, we're really sorry you got it wrong, but we could retract it and we probably would be okay on the business side, right? Some way to map that. I think that's the key of like actually mapping these two business criteria for launch. That's the one I'm most familiar with. But I think there's a lot of room here to evolve more precise frameworks around that.
Yeah. I think what's probably more commercial out there is all around hallucination and factualities, and they built around. I think everything else you kind of have to define for yourself based on the use case.
Exactly. The use case and the context is so different. An example I loved was we had an unfactual answer around who won like a WWE wrestling match in 2019, right? And some people are like, that is 5 out of 5 bad. Like that was the worst. That's the biggest event that happened all year in WWE. This was I lose all trust, you know? And some people are like, who are these people? Why does anyone care about this? Right. So it really does depend on the context and your user. So you can't just depend on benchmarks for this thing at all. You really have to take into consideration what's going to be right for your use case.
All right. So custom evals it is per use case.
Custom evals it is. Get on top of it. That is our weekly insight and questions people are asking me.
Excellent. Right. With that, all that deep, thoughtful analysis of the big questions that people need to think through for AI, we move on to the opposite end. All right. Now we're at my favorite session of all podcasts ever, and not just our own because I'm biased. It is absolutely objective judgment. So BS in AI. This is
we are in a target-rich environment.
We're a target-rich environment. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my BS for the month. AI and everything. All right. I don't know if you've noticed, if you go to anything tech related, tech adjacent, tech nearby, it just tech breathed over it. AI is in there somewhere, and it's getting a little silly. So people at CES were kind of commenting, wow, there's like AI everything. There's AI mirror, AI tour guide, AI. My favorite one, of course, is AI water. And I'm like, what, really?
AI water?
I'm like, wait, what did I just miss? But one of my favorite, and I started seeing some of this advertising when, I'm not going to name names, but I saw one, it's real, it's live. It's a real company. It goes, we put the AI in IPA. And I was like,
is it a beer company?
It's not. I was like, I'm just going to go off and be like, okay, we put the AI in Hawaii.
Yeah, like, exactly. We were just in Maui. I put the AI in Maui. It's like, I want those beach signs that point like this way to the lake, or you can't say, Friday without, I don't know. I was like, you can't say Maui without AI. Like, what?
Yeah. I'm going to be like, there's no California AI. Without AI. Yeah. That's going to be our new, we're just going to throw AI in everywhere. No, AI in Colorado.
I get it that there's just such a fascination with AI that you feel like you have to put the word in everything just to get attention right now. So I get why it's happening,
yeah.
but
yeah. That is agent.
Good bullshit for sure.
All right, Miss Polly.
Okay, so the one that's driving me crazy right now. To be clear, I do not think that like AI generated software, it's purely you just put in English language and outspouts an app. I do not think that is bullshit. I think that is like a path that's going to happen. But I see a lot of people encouraging, especially product leaders right now, to say like, oh, you need to become a massive prototyper and you can just prototype anything by like putting in an English description of an app and boom, it writes the code for you. Look at all zip all the code appearing, and it's just doesn't work that way right now. It's not there yet. And it's frustrating to see people, especially without a technical background, even with a technical background. I have tried this. You can put in an English language description. And if it's not like a really basic example, like make me a Pong game or something, right? That a lot of the demos are of, it's got a lot more to do than write code. And I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what like a software developer does is like they do so much more than write code. They're organizing it into multiple files. They're putting some files on one server or like compiling them to another artifact that gets put on one server versus another to actually get it deployed somewhere where other people can use it, right? So all of that happening, and some of these tools like Replit are doing all the heavy lifting for you. But the minute you try to change something and it breaks, you don't understand any of the code it's written or where it put anything to actually be able to go back and debug it effectively. And so I want people to not try this and get frustrated and think that they are stupid, because they're not. It's really, really like an exercise in frustration, even if you understand code. because there's so many things that they could, it's writing and continually rewriting stuff that worked. So unless you have a good process around writing regression tests as you go, so nothing breaks and you can restore to an endpoint, I've had lots of people in my programs try to work with this and they get to about 75% and then they get frustrated and they give up. And honestly, if you're just trying to get something done, which like those are the people I really want to help, a lot of the time it might have been easier to start with a no code tool, as frustrating as those can be too, right? There's no easy path. Um, and I hope we get there someday, but we are not there today. And I want to make sure people know that it's like, absolutely, you want to develop this muscle. This is a great place to start, but don't expect to just sit down and make a great prototype to show off to your team in 2 hours.
Yeah. I think like my thought is the wrong people are building this tool. it's all it's all devs and dev nerds who are building these tools that's supposed to be non-technical people being able to create because they're communicating from more behavior or requirements point of view and not how you build. I can't, I'm just like, oh my God, this is a dev that just basically go, well, instead of typing, you can drag a few things.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's so tough because, and then you get this advice. It's just like, well, if you end up with a problem, put it in ChatGPT. Like, which of my 18 files do I put in ChatGPT? Right? Like, and often, as you know from developing code, it's not one line of code that's wrong. It's the interaction between two different parts of the code, possibly in different files. Like if you are not building a mental model of how the code works as you go, going back and understanding that is a whole big challenge that like often, especially non-technical folks, are not set up to succeed, right? So it's like, but then you have people developing the stuff who's like, what do you mean it's easy? You're like, come on.
Yeah. So I think part of the my BS is like kind of a sub BS of your BS because the really what we're talking about is not code generation but app generation. Those of us
Yeah,
that are
yeah,
business
totally. I
users
think the
like
code
I want a
generation,
working app,
obviously,
right?
monumental. Yeah, totally.
So what's making that worse outside of just the sheer marketing from AI and Devin and all this stuff is that people are calling custom GPTs or just custom assistants, they're calling them custom apps. And I've seen this more than a few times. And they're like, look, the company now, all the business users are just creating custom apps. They're generating their own custom app. And I'm like, that's a custom GPT. That's system prompts and some
Exactly.
files.
It's like the
I'm
old
like,
the old adage about like
oh,
AI is just like three if statements from Excel in a trench coat, and now it's just a Chat GPT in a trench coat. You're like, you can use it, friends can use it. I don't know if I'd like make this my production environment thing in big company. They're I mean, I think that's the other piece people don't understand is like the people who build those systems are different engineers than the people who build MVPs, prototypes, get it out in the world fast, right? These are different skill sets, and it depends on like the ethos of the people building the tool, which one you're going to end up with. So it's got so much promise. I really hope we get there sooner than later. That you can describe an app and it's up there. Hopefully, O3 will be AGI,
you know,
and
my favorite anecdote on the web app is somebody totally on the business side. They thought ChatGPT was so cool because they asked it to write a web app that does the following and did all these things. They're like, "Oh, this is so cool! I can't believe I'm doing this!" And they built pages, functionality. They connected to OpenAI, and they were like, "Hey, how can I share this with you so you can see it and give me something?" I'm like, "Okay, cool." They sent me a URL. You know what the URL was? Localhost.
right on their computer. So
I know. I
no,
was like such
it's
a
not
nerd
things. Yeah,
nerd thing. I'm like, people think web apps are just it just goes to she's like, well, why can't I share it with you? Here's a URL. I'm like, that's localhost. That's on your machine. You need a web server. You need a like.
and not to like put down. It is super cool that that person feels empowered to like write their own stuff and like massive like we want this. We want everyone to unlock this feeling of like my code ran and did what I wanted. And I think there's a movement away from big SaaS applications to people building their own little micro code apps to get to be for productivity. That's amazing. Don't get it confused with production software that's going to be used throughout a big company or going to be a final like thing you put out to the world, right? And it's just people don't have that mental model of how the two are different.
All right. So the BS meter, how high is the BS meter on this one?
Okay, it was a mix, right? Because I do think it has a lot of potential. But right now it's like at a 6 or a 7 because there's this furor over teach everyone to build, with no technical background to build apps, especially if you're talking about production apps. You're up to like an 8. I'm like, this is high. It's not there. Non-technical to production apps, that is bullshit right now. Um, and the potential is there. Prototyping, like let's play with it, but expect frustration.
All right. And the AI in everything, where are we on the BS meter
Oh.
on that one?
Oh, I mean, because it's marketing, it's a 10, right? It's a marketing thing that's made its way into technology. So you're like, you have to say AI to get noticed. So AI ducks, are they the real threat?
It's back when they added .com and little I in front of everything. If you still remember those days. Okay, all right. Averaging it out, BS 7. All right. And with that, we finish our BS for the month.
That's right. We are now done. So that's our episode for the week. We have one last section, which is time for our call outs. Did you have any call outs this week?
My call out, same as always, is subscribe to my newsletter on Substack, yuying.substack.com, or you can follow me on LinkedIn to get similar content, to get a little more serious analysis, but just as straight. How about you?
Excellent. Fantastic. Well, I have a newsletter as well at aicareerboost.com/interested. I also just wrapped up my monthly free masterclass. So it was the path to AI product leadership in 2025. We did a bit of a deep dive into what an eval looks like. So if you're interested in that, do check us out. We'll include the link in the show notes, and be sure to be sure to sign up for that and watch the replay. We've also got a couple goodies in there, some free discounts on some of our courses if you watch the replay as well. Awesome. Well, that's been another episode of AI After Hours, and we're super excited to see you next time with next month's review of the news and bullshit. Thanks so much, Yuying. We'll talk to you guys soon.